Welcome to the Rum Revival and the Night of 1,000 Zombies. Hey, it's Arminder, and when it comes to rum cocktails, I absolutely love the zombie. It's one of my favorites, but it's not one that I drink all that often. So I'm actually gonna change that. I am going to try up to 1,000 zombies and rate them from 1 to 10 to see which one or which ones are my absolute favorite. Now, since this is a rum channel that tends to focus on specific bottlings and less on cocktails as a whole, I'm only going to include recipes that call for specific rums. So if a recipe says an ounce of Jamaican rum, I'm not all that interested. But if it says an ounce of Worthy Park 109, now we're talking. Created in 1934 by Donn Beach at his Donn the Beachcomber restaurant in Hollywood, the Zombie is traditionally a potent blend of about 4 ounces of rum, usually a blend of an aged Puerto Rican rum, an aged Jamaican rum, and a high-proof Demerara rum from Guyana. Now, along with all those rums, we have some lime juice, some grapefruit juice, some grenadine. It's all spiced up with some falernum and some cinnamon syrup, and then seasoned with some Angostura bitters and Pernod or absinthe. Clearly, a lot going on in that cocktail. So that's how Donn Beach put together the Zombie in 1934, but there are tons of zombies out there that veer away from that by using different rums or just small amounts of rum or the addition of other interesting and unexpected spirits and ingredients. Now, a lot of the zombies that are going to be featured in this video will be more traditional takes on the zombie, and the others, well, you'll just have to see. Either way, a great zombie to me tastes bold and should feel a little dangerous, right? There should be an intensity of flavors, big bold rums and big bold spices. And each sip should feel like I'm getting closer and closer to turning into a zombie myself. Not a literal zombie, but more like a buzzed mess. Now, to me, that is the allure of a good zombie. So I think that's how I'm gonna rate them, but I think I am open to being surprised by ones that do something different. So for the first zombie in this video, I think we should start with arguably the most popular zombie recipe out there, and I'm gonna base that entirely on what is the most viewed zombie cocktail video here on YouTube. That's not a short. With 2 million views, we have the Bacardi Zombie. 2 million views. So this is 2 ounces of Bacardi Superior, 2 ounces of Bacardi Gold. There is some grenadine, as you can see from the color, but then there's triple sec, sweet and sour mix, and orange juice, and a lot of it too. So clearly this has very little to do with the original Donn the Beachcomber recipe, I guess with the exception of the use of the aged Puerto Rican rum and the grenadine. But hey, I mean, 2 million people on the internet can't be wrong, right? What can go wrong? Cheers. I don't really taste any rum, first and foremost. It's just sweet. It's grenadine and orange juice. It's not vile. It's not even trash. It's just juice. Doesn't taste like a zombie. Like, I'm not gonna actually score it pretty high because it doesn't taste like a zombie. It just tastes like OJ and grenadine. My rating system, a 10, of course, is gonna be to me a absolute perfect zombie, the best zombie. A 1 really is something that it's reserved for stuff that you physically can't drink. It's so bad, so vile, so rotten that it just, you would never consume it and you would not give it to your worst enemy. And a 5 in between is like, oh, this is just perfectly fine. You know, it's not amazing, it's serviceable, and it'll kind of, you know, just be okay. Like I would drink it again, a 5. So with that in mind, I think I'm gonna give this a 3. Let's dive into our first of many zombies on this list that actually sticks pretty close to the original Donn the Beachcomber formula. This is the Zombie from Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar out in Disneyland. This actually does have some lime juice, some grapefruit juice, cinnamon syrup, grenadine, falernum, a dash of absinthe, and a dash of Angostura bitters. But of course, what we're really interested in are the rums. So for the aged Puerto Rican rum, they use Bacardi 8-year, Bacardi Ocho. For the aged Jamaican rum, they use Appleton's Signature. And then for the final rum, for the 151 proof Demerara rum, Trader Sam's uses Hamilton 151. Now, get used to this bottle because you're gonna see it in a lot of zombies in this video. Oh, that is much more like what I was expecting a zombie to taste like. You definitely pick up a hint of the absinthe, a little bit of the bitters, so it provides that little accent. I'm getting this really nice dark fruit, big boozy flavor profile. And this has a lot of the flavors that I'm looking for in a zombie, from the kind of higher proof Demerara rum, right? The smoky notes, the savory, woody, oily, rich notes, combined with the absinthe and the cinnamon syrup and the falernum, the spices. Love that. Love that it has that, but I think this could be dialed up a lot higher. And I think the alcohol could be a lot more big and bold in terms of just feeling it. And there's not as much richness and complexity here as I would like to see in my zombies. I say let's give it a 7. It is pretty good. All right, so our next zombie is from Death & Company and their Cocktail Codex book. Here they call it their Zombie Punch. Now compared to the Trader Sam's version that we just had, this is heavier on the Pernod and the Falernum, but it actually has less rum in it, where the Trader Sam's version and the traditional recipe calls for about 4 ounces. This has 3¼ ounces of rum. Very similar to Trader Sam's, they use the Appleton Signature for the Jamaican, they use Hamilton 151, but the difference is with the aged Puerto Rican. Instead of using the Bacardi 8-year, they use Rondel Barlito 3-star. The most immediate thing, the first thing, is the presence of the Pernod. There's a lot more of it here than in the Trader Sam's version. That might have had absinthe, but whatever, that note, far more dominant here. I will say though, in terms of the rum, this kind of lacks an intensity of presence that the Trader Sam's version had. And I think a big part of that, of course, is the fact that there's less rum in here. I would say this is probably maybe the more balanced cocktail, but it doesn't have that element of intensity and bold brashness that I kind of want in my zombie. So because of that, I think I'm gonna rate this a 6. Okay, so for our next zombie, we're going with the one that's featured in Tiki, Modern Tropical Cocktails, the book by Shannon Mustipher. This is her recipe. It is essentially very much a 1934 zombie, but what's interesting are the specific rums that she recommends. For the big bold Demerara rum, she goes with Lemon Heart 151, so that's interesting. And then for the Jamaican rum, she goes with the Hamilton Jamaican Pot Still Black, which is Worthy Park rum. It's unaged rum actually. And then for the aged Puerto Rican component, she actually goes with Scarlet Ibis, which is a rum from Trinidad. And the really interesting thing of note here is that unlike the previous zombies, we are definitely playing in very high proof territory right now. Obviously the 151 is 75.5% ABV, whatever the math works out on that is. But the Jamaican, the Hamilton, is 46.5% ABV, and the Scarlet Ibis, which I was kind of surprised, is 49% ABV. So big and bold, and this is 4 ounces of the rum. Cheers. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. Love it, love it, love it. You get so much of that banana from the Worthy Park Black. This is the first zombie I've had tonight that I actually get a significant Jamaican component. You can feel that, oh boy, you know, maybe I should just have the 1, 2 if I'm really pushing it, but I should eat a lot of food in between and after kind of situation. That's what I want from my zombies. I do wish that it was maybe a little bit more spiced and it had a little bit more of that element kind of shining through. I think this is a great zombie, and given that, I'm gonna score it an 8. Now we have another zombie from Shannon Mustipher, well actually a zombie riff from Shannon. This is the Muertito Vivo. A lot of stuff that you'd expect to see in a traditional zombie are not in here. There's no grenadine, there's no falernum, there's no absinthe or Pernod, no Angostura bitters. There is some Donn's mix, some grapefruit juice, cinnamon syrup, and some lime juice. Now in terms of the spirits, we're using Flor de Caña 7-year, I guess, in the place of the aged Puerto Rican. And then for the higher proof Demerara, we are using the Hamilton 151. There is no aged Jamaican component in here, but there is one other thing that I think is worth getting excited about. It is Jägermeister. Yeah, by the way, you gotta admit, this is the cutest little thing out there. We should all have a pocket-sized Jägermeister in our pockets for emergencies. But she uses 3/4 of an ounce of this in the drink. I'm excited, so here we go. Cheers. Ooh, love that combination of flavors. Really nice. That Jägermeister kind of really integrates very well with all the other ingredients. Now on the finish, we get nice botanical, dry, herbaceousness. I really, really like the flavors. I really like the presence of the Jaeger, how well it integrates in with all the other ingredients, and it's just a unique flavor when it comes to a zombie, but it's also not so far off. Like to me, yes, most zombies don't use a lot of Jaeger, but they use Pernod and absinthe or Angostura bitters. So this is sort of playing in that space, and it's a little heightened and maybe a slightly different kind of angle, but it's not unexpected. Like it just works, and to me, it works in a zombie, and it feels still zombie-ish. Do wish it was a little higher in proof, so given that, I'm gonna score it a 7. Here's the breakdown of the scores for the first 5 zombies with Shannon Mustipher at the top of the list with a score of 8. All right, so for our next zombie, we're going with the one from the Smuggler's Cove book. Now, if you're familiar with this book, then you obviously know that they don't call out specific rums in the recipe, but I live relatively close by to Smuggler's Cove, so I went there this past weekend and asked them what do they currently use, because I'm sure over the years it's kind of shifted and changed depending on availability and whatnot. And so these are the 3 rums that they're currently using. For the aged Jamaican component, they are using Money Musk Classic Gold. For the aged Puerto Rican, they're not using an aged Puerto Rican. Instead, they're using Hamilton 86 Guyanese Demerara rum. And then for the big, bold, higher proof Demerara option, they are going with OFTD from Planere. This has Guyanese rum, Jamaican rum, Barbados rum, and I don't know what else. It is 4 ounces of rum. I believe it's an ounce, ounce and a half. So here we go. Cheers. Oh, that is delicious. That is spectacular. Ooh, that has a nice little bite to it. Flavor bite, not even like ABV bite. There's a nice snap to those rums. I get some of the herb saint, some of the ango, the cinnamon syrup. I am surprised. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised that the Smuggler's zombie would be a pretty damn good zombie. And yeah, it is. This definitely feels a little more dangerous than some of the other ones I've had, but the full intensity of alcohol and rum isn't there, I think, as much as maybe what I'm kind of looking for, but the flavors are definitely there. Definitely leans heavier in the smoky, savory, oily, woody, rich notes of the Demerara rums. I'm gonna give this an 8. All right, so the next zombie is also from Smuggler's Cove. It is their Undead Gentleman, which is their simplified coupe version of a zombie. And in terms of the rums, they use 2 out of the 3 rums that they use for their zombie. And I don't think there's grenadine in here, and they've kind of rejiggered kind of the proportions of the other ingredients to kind of make it work as kind of a neat drink. So here we go. Cheers. You know what that tastes like? Kind of tastes like and looks like a dried apricot. This tastes a little sweeter and maybe even a little richer to me than the Smuggler's Cove zombie. There is some absinthe there and a little bit of cinnamon, but altogether, I think maybe there's too much cinnamon syrup and too much falernum in here because it is a little too sweet for my taste. Would I rather drink this or their actual zombie? Yeah, I think I would drink the actual zombie. It tastes like there's less complexity in terms of the rum flavors by only using these 2 rums. I feel like I'm missing something on the rum front. So given that, I think I am going to score this a 6. All right, so our next zombie is the Hamilton Beachbum Berry Zombie Blend Zombie. Beachbum Berry, who is a very important figure as it relates to the zombie because he helped uncover and decode the recipe from 1934 for us, so we now know what's in it. And he worked with Ed Hamilton of Hamilton Rums to come up with a blended rum that would serve as a single bottle rum for a zombie. This is a 59% ABV rum. It's got Worthy, well, I don't know if it has Worthy Park. I know it has Jamaican, but I'm assuming because it's at Hamilton that it's a good chance that it's Worthy Park, but don't quote me on that. Guyanese rum, Demerara rum, a higher proof one from Demerara Distillers. And then instead of the Puerto Rican component, they use a 2 or 3 year old, I think, rum from Trinidad. This recipe that's specific to this blend only calls for 2 ounces of rum. Cheers. A lot of different flavors going on here. What is going on? Whoa, I tasted everything. Every single ingredient, one after the other. I'm still recovering. Give me a second. Up front, you get that hit of the rums, and then it kind of dissipates and all the juices and the syrups come through. And now on the back end, you are getting a little bit of that presence of the alcohol. I'm not getting a lot of like rich, savory, oily, woody, like high Demerara notes on this. In fact, what I'm getting is honey and flowers right now in the finish. So weird experience, not what I expected. Yeah, it's very floral, very honey, but there's no flowers here and there's no honey in this. Given the 2 ounces, even with the 59% ABV, this doesn't feel intense and dangerous. This feels like I could have 3 of these and I'd probably be okay. Not blown away by the flavors. The intensity is not there for me. So given all of that, I think I'm gonna rate this a 6. All right, so we're moving on to fairly interesting territory here. We're moving on to the low ABV zombie section, or really zombie riffs, really. What we have here is the Zombie Pop, which was created by Sean O'Connell, who is the Southern California brand development manager for Mum and Pop, which is this brand here of aperitif wine. It's low ABV because there's actually very little rum in here. Both the St. Benevolence Clarin, which will be our first unaged rum in a zombie for this video, and then the Hamilton Jamaica Pot Still Black. For each of these, there's only a 1/4 ounce in here, so a total of 1/2 ounce of rum. The remaining 2 ounces of alcohol is coming from this Mum and Pop grapefruit. And this is made from rosé, ruby red grapefruits, got some green cardamom, some orris root, and some vanilla bean. Outside of that, we've got some Angostura bitters, a little spritz of absinthe, some cinnamon syrup, and I think that's kind of it. Let's get going. Cheers. Ooh, that Clarin is lovely on the finish. Whoa. Oh, I forgot the other part, because I just got a hit of it now. This is topped off with Brut Champagne. So it's got a little spritzy kind of quality to it as well. This is perfect for the summer. Of course, it's not really the summer, but this is light, refreshing, bubbly. I really, really like it, but it's not what I'm looking for in a zombie. I'm gonna score it instead a 6. So our next low ABV zombie is the Zombie Spritz. This was made by Matt Rayson at Dante's in New York, and this was a part of their first Tiki menu, which used aperitivos and amari to do fun, like low ABV spins on tiki classics. There's about 1/2 ounce of Aperol, 1.5 ounces of Lillet Rosé, and then only a 1/4 ounce of Santa Teresa 1796. And then there's a bar spoon of absinthe, which is quite a lot of absinthe if you ask me, and a bar spoon of banana liqueur, a bar spoon of vodka, probably just to kind of bump up the ABV, and some grapefruit juice, some lime juice, some cinnamon syrup, some Angostura bitters, and some saline solution. So there we go, let's give it a shot. Oh, actually, and I forgot, it's topped off with 2 ounces of sparkling rosé. Woo! Love those flavors. It's very absinthe forward, but my God, that absinthe is balanced by a little bit of that banana liqueur, actually. That's surprisingly a great combination. I think the sparkling rosé kind of lifts up all the ingredients, brightens up the absinthe. It just has a little more complexity of flavors and layers of flavors. And that absinthe really kind of does remind me of a zombie. The cinnamon syrup kind of kicks in, so you're getting all these layers. As you can see, I had the whole drink and I loved it. It was great. It was fantastic. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of rum in it, and yeah, it's not that overly boozy and rummy and dangerous, but I just really, really loved all the flavors that were present, so I think it's worthy of an 8. Here's a breakdown of the current rankings. At the top of the list with scores of 8, we have the zombie from Smuggler's Cove, Shannon Mustipher zombie, and the Zombie Spritz. All right, so for the next zombie is one I'm really excited about, because as you can see here, it uses nothing but unaged spirits, which is really exciting. This is the Oaxacan Daed from Leandro over at the Educated Barfly YouTube channel. As you can see here, it uses Charonda Uruapan Blanco. I absolutely love this. And this fact is the only rum that's used in this particular zombie, and only a 1/4 ounce. Then it also calls specifically for Tapatio 110, which is a fantastic tequila, higher proof tequila. And then the other 2 bottles, it's kind of a little more generic, his recipe. This calls for a Blanco tequila, so I'm using more Tapatio, the Tapatio Blanco. And then it calls for a Espadín Mezcal, so I went the Del Maguey, which is an Espadín, yes it is, all right. Now, while this doesn't seem like a traditional zombie, the rest of the ingredients are very straightforward traditional zombie ingredients. Angostura bitters, absinthe, grapefruit juice, lime juice, falernum, and grenadine. Let's give it a try. What the hell, that is fantastic. Woo! The big, bold flavors of all these spirits are there. The very complex mix of flavors. If you like minerality and roasted agave and a little charcoal ash note of the Charonda, I think you're really, really gonna like this. And it has all those similar notes of the familiar notes of the grenadine, the falernum, the lime juice, the grapefruit juice, the Ango, and the absinthe. Give you this base of familiarity from which all these fun, unique, interesting flavors kind of jump out at you. Brilliant. Leandro, this might be the first original Leandro cocktail I've ever tried. And big ups to you, bud. This is fantastic. But it's because this is my video, I am scoring this whatever the hell I want, and I'm gonna give this a 9. It's just that good. Our next zombie is the White Zombie. This was made by Zach Overman when he was at Fort Defiance in Brooklyn. And what's really interesting is, as you can see here, more clear spirits. Now we have some rum, the Banks 5 Island. This is Guyana, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, and Indonesia. The other 2 bottles are not rum. We've got Pisco, Machu Pisco specifically, and then we have some gin. This is Hayman's Royal Dock Gin. This is at 57% ABV. Really excited to see this combination. Now most of the ingredients here are pretty standard zombie ingredients. I think there's no grenadine in here, but also there is a bar spoon of maraschino liqueur. There's also a little bit of passion fruit puree. All right, here goes. Cheers. Definitely get the combination of the absinthe and the maraschino. That's kind of like the big top level note, which to me is very much zombie territory. There's also up front a good amount of the gin coming through. Yeah, that combination of maraschino, absinthe, and the gin are such a fantastic, bold combination of flavors that really are the dominant notes there. And you know, from the gin, I'm getting a lot of like citrus, a little bit of like juniper and coriander kind of notes there as well. And I just think it makes for a very spirit-forward drink, and it's kind of what I want out of my zombie. Spirit-forward and kind of lingering and feeling like I probably shouldn't have too much of this, even though obviously the ABV on this collectively is not too crazy compared to some of the other zombies that I've had and will have. But I think the perception is maybe more important than the reality, I guess, as I'm rating these zombies. Now, given that, I'm gonna score this an 8. All right, so our next zombie is the Zombie King from Strongwater out in Anaheim. It's a fantastic bar. I've had the Zombie King before, but it's been like 2 or 3 years. And it's got an interesting mix of rums. As you can see here, they use Crucian Blackstrap, which was pretty surprising. Hamilton 86 from, Guyana, Demerara 86. But they also include the Hamilton Pimento Dram, so allspice dram, but specifically this bottling. And what's interesting is in this particular recipe, they use a full ounce. And this is some big, bold, potent stuff. We're not done because they also do a full ounce of Blue Chair coconut rum. Yes, there's coconut rum in this zombie. And yes, I have a very big bottle of this rum. This was the smallest size I could find in my immediate vicinity. And now I'm stuck with it. There's also a lot of bitters in here. 2 dashes of black walnut bitters and 4 dashes of Angostura bitter. So yeah, a lot going on here. All right, let's see what it's all about. Cheers. There's a lot of flavors going on here. Very rich. The Crucian Blackstrap, if anyone's had this, they know there's like a kind of like a maple syrup kind of note. That is definitely here in this rum. But now on the finish, I'm getting so much of the bitters. The black walnut and a lot of the Angostura bitters. And so maybe the sweetness of this and the sweetness of the Crucian Blackstrap are really kind of what I'm picking up in terms of the overall sweetness here. Maple syrup and coconut, coconut flavored maple syrup. This is a big boozy zombie, so that's great. Big spice note, which is great, love that. All those bitters, the allspice or the pimento dram. The problem is this thing. And maybe to a certain extent, this thing. There's just this rich, slightly cloying quality to this cocktail that I'm having a hard time with. I do feel like there's like a film on my tongue from this rum. Frankly, I would like to see a different mix of rums with this overall kind of combination of spices and bitters, because I think they're onto something. I've had this much. I don't think I can really have a whole lot more. So from being truthful, I'm gonna have to score this a 5. Sorry. Now our next zombie is a little different. There's no rum involved, and in fact, there's no spirits involved at all. It's in fact a beer. This is Lagunitas' new Tiki Fusion Zombie Cocktail Inspired IPA. I saw this on the shelf and I thought, well, I have to absolutely include this in this video, and that's what I'm doing. This is a 10% ABV. It's a hazy IPA with notes of orange, lime, grapefruit, and allspice. There's none of that actually in there. It does say it's a ale with natural flavors, so I don't know if that means there's some additives in here to kind of, create some of those flavors, or it's all coming from the hops and the yeast. Not entirely sure, but very excited to try it. Cheers. I mean, it doesn't so much taste like a zombie, but it tastes like orange flavored beer, at least on the first sip. Now they say there's notes of allspice. Honestly, I'm having a tough time picking it up. Let's pour it in a glass, see how hazy it is. Yeah, not super hazy. I've had hazier beers for sure. At one point in my life, I was really into beer. I worked in the beer industry, and I drank a lot of beer, and I can tell you, this is not good beer at all. By any stretch of the imagination, this is not beer, or rather it's beer and it's definitely not a zombie. I'm gonna easily score this just a 2, a simple, straightforward 2. It's not good. It's definitely not a real good zombie, definitely not a good beer. I don't wanna give it a 1 because 1 should be reserved for something that's like, it's impossible to drink because it might be spoiled or poison. This is not that, but it's the next best thing. Now, if you're watching this right now and you're wondering, why doesn't it include a zombie that's, oh, I don't know, blue? Well, I've got you covered. Yeah, this is the Bacardi zombie from Bacardi. This is a pre-made bottled zombie that is blue for whatever the hell reason. Presumably it's a different like mix of ingredients than the other Bacardi recipe I included in this video. It says here it's a premium rum cocktail made with citrus, passion fruit, triple sec flavors, and sweetened with cane sugar. For sure, the other Bacardi zombie that I made in this video didn't have passion fruit, so right away there's a little bit of a difference besides the obvious blue of it all. Anyways, let's see if it's any good. Cheers. No, that's a 1. Thanks. Now here's a breakdown of the current rankings, and at the top of the list with a score of 9 is the Oaxacan Daed. Now that's followed by a couple of 8s, the White Zombie, Smuggler's Cove Zombie, Shannon Mustipher Zombie, and the Zombie Spritz. Okay, so the next zombie is very red. This is the Italian zombie from Marie King back when she was at Tonga Hut. And as you can see, it has a couple of Jamaican rums in here. It's got the Hamilton Jamaica Pot Still Black from Worthy Park. And then it has Caruba here. But not just that. The reason why it's called the Italian zombie is because it has a good amount of Campari. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love Campari. This is definitely a Campari household. There's a couple other things going on here. There's a good amount of pineapple juice. There's some passion fruit syrup here as well. There's lime juice, there's Pernod, there's Angostura bitters, and there's a little bit of apricot liqueur as well. Here goes, cheers. Come on, that is a symphony in my mouth. Wow, I didn't know I was missing that in my life until this very moment. It definitely is a non-traditional zombie, but full of flavor. It's simultaneously juicy and tropical and yet dry and bracing. I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. The Campari is able to shift all those richer elements in its direction a little bit without being overly dry and overly bitter. And even though there's only half an ounce of the Hamilton Jamaica Pot Still Black, it's able to make itself very apparent throughout all these big bold ingredients. It really kind of comes up to the forefront. And I love that. While there isn't any grapefruit juice or cinnamon syrup in here like the original zombie, I just think it has the spirit of a zombie with that layers and layers of complex flavors, the layers of different kind of booze and kind of intense and rich and out there flavors. That to me really is what makes a zombie appealing. This has all of that. You know, I'm gonna listen to my heart. I've had a couple of zombies so far tonight, but I'm gonna go with my gut, follow my heart, and give this a 9. I just think this is a spectacular combination of flavors that you absolutely need to try. Now, a couple years back, Punch, the online spirits publication, did a ultimate zombie competition where they had bartenders from around the country submit their zombie recipes, and they had a bunch of people in the spirits and bar industry rate those zombies, and they crowned the top 3 zombies, with one being the ultimate zombie. And I'm gonna feature all 3 of those next. All right, so this is the 3rd place winner of the Ultimate Zombie competition there on Punch. This is the Hollow Kingdom Zombie by Chantal Seng. Her recipe calls for an ounce of Smith & Cross, half an ounce of Hamilton 151, and half an ounce of Nissan Blanca rum agricole, which I think is pretty interesting. Beyond that, she specifically calls for Maggie's Farm Falernum, which is a pretty flavorful, ginger-forward falernum that's higher in proof than the John D. Taylor falernum. So there it is, let's give it a shot. Cheers. Woo! Right now, there's like a 1/4 ounce of absinthe here. Has this very long, lingering absinthe note, like midway through, all the way to the finish. It's the dominant note. The ginger and cloves of the Maggie's Farm is also pretty intense and in your face as well. This is maybe one of the most spiced and absinthe-forward zombies I've had for this video. To the point, though, that I think it's almost overshadowing the rums. I'm having a tough time picking out the rumminess, the booziness of any of these rums. I feel like I have this slick film of absinthe over my tongue. I'm gonna have to give this a pretty simple, straightforward 6. Now moving on to the second place winner of Punch's Ultimate Zombie Competition is the Inferno Room Zombie. Now, Inferno Room is a tiki bar out in Indianapolis, and this is by Chris Coy, one of the owners. And as you can see, they're not messing around when it comes to the rums in this zombie. Worthy Park 109 is a 54.5% ABV Jamaican rum. Love this. Then Hamilton 151, so it's 75.5% ABV. And then of course the Planet OFTD, which is at 69% ABV. All massive heavy hitters. Probably the zombie to date in this video that has rums with the highest ABV. Now, one thing though to keep in mind is they're not doing like an ounce and a half or an ounce of each. They're actually only going with 3/4 of an ounce of each of these rums to maybe kind of balance out that high ABV. The rest of the ingredients in the zombie are pretty traditional zombie ingredients. All right, here goes. Cheers. Woo! That is good. I mean, it kind of has it all. These rums are big, bold, intense. You get that rich, oily, smoky, woody Demerara note, like that's the dominant rum note. And obviously both of these are kind of contributing to that. But I've always said the Worthy Park 109 has this aspect to it that feels very much like a Demerara rum. And this is maybe why this tastes so kind of heavy in that flavor profile. But I'm also tasting this concentration of a bit of absinthe, a good amount of the cinnamon syrup as well. And there's like 3 dashes of Angostura bitters here, so that bitters component is definitely heightened here as well. I think this has this great balance between boozy, rummy notes, bitter notes, spice notes, juicy notes, sweet notes, all of that balance. And really, in my mind, by balance, I mean it's very much spirit and rum forward first and foremost, but it has the foundation of all those other ingredients to bolster up the intensity and the high octane nature of these rums. I think this takes the traditional Donn the Beachcomber zombie recipe and amplifies things, especially on the rum front. It really amplifies those flavors. And there's definitely here an element here of running the risk of things getting out of hand. Even with just one, definitely with 2, and I would never try to have more than 2. Yeah, just in terms of how it tastes, I'm still going to find out in the few minutes from now, I guess, the effects of just one of these zombies. But I gotta tell you, I'm feeling warm inside. That this is what I've been looking for when it comes to a zombie. Those flavors and that teetering on the edge of, oh my God, it might become a hot mess. That to me is what I want out of a zombie. If I really think about it, I would want to bump up the spice element here just a touch. So given that, I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10, but it's really like a 9.9 out of 10. All right, moving on to the winner of Punch's Ultimate Zombie Competition. What we have here is Anton Kinloch Zombie. Anton is the owner of Lone Wolf, a bar out in Kingston, New York. And as you can see here, he follows more of a traditional kind of breakdown of the rums that are used in his zombie. For the aged Puerto Rican, he uses an actual Puerto Rican rum, Havana Club Añejo from Puerto Rico. For the Jamaican component, he goes with Hamden 8-year, which is surprising because I haven't really seen many zombies, or really any, calling for Hamden 8-year. That's exciting. And then for the high proof Demerara component, he goes with Hamilton 151. The other ingredients here are traditional zombie ingredients. He does specifically call for the Maggie's Farm Falernum, which is a little higher in proof, more ginger, more clove notes than the John D. Taylor. Now, will this live up to the hype? Let's find out. Cheers. Yeah, I think he has the right balance here of the spice notes. The absinthe and the cinnamon syrup are really well integrated, and they're kind of on your palate the entire way through, which is exactly what I like, instead of like just on the finish. And what I also like, this isn't like overly juicy and fruity. Yeah, there's a little bit of lime, a little bit of grapefruit, and actually a decent amount of grenadine, but those are definitely in the background. And that really allows the bitters, the Angostura, and the cinnamon to kind of shine a little bit more. Really good backbone of spice and that absinthe, all great. I do like the flavors of this rum. There's just not enough boldness and kind of in-your-faceness in terms of these particular rums. I think this one is probably doing all the heavy lifting. I am getting a good amount of Hamden, but just there's not enough there to really kind of, for me, make it a 9. And so because of that, I'm gonna have to score this a fantastic 8. I think I prefer my zombies to be a little unhinged, and I think the Inferno Room one does that a little better. hence why this is getting the 8 and that one's getting the 9. All right, the final zombie in this video is the one from Tropical Standard by Garrett Richard and Ben Schaefer. Now this is the Donn's Demon, and it's actually a play on the zombie recipe that Donn the Beachcomber had around 1956. And that particular recipe was a little more, I guess, fruit forward, I guess is my understanding of that. Now what Garrett's done is really included some really interesting rums here. Obviously the Hamilton 151 and the Karuba for a Jamaican component, but additional Jamaican component we're using Dr. Bird, and then Chairman's Reserve Original. Super surprising to see this rum. I think this is a fantastic rum, super underrated, and it's really cool to see that in a zombie. Now I selected this to be the last zombie for one reason and one reason only, not because I think this is going to be the winner necessarily of this particular video, but because it's the one that took me the longest to source all of the ingredients. The rums were fairly easy, I had all of these, but some of the things were a little involved in terms of the other ingredients. I had to acid adjust my pineapple juice. I had to make red fasanola by combining some grenadine with some Luxardo cherry syrup, and I had to source that. And I had to make some grapefruit punch syrup, which involved some oleosaccharum, which is something I've never done before. So that was a learning experience, and I'm glad I did it, but that's why this is the end of the video, because it's the one that took the longest to put together. As you can probably tell, this is not all happening in one night. Okay, let's give it a try. Cheers. I need a moment. Wow. I mean, come on. I gotta say, all that effort, all that energy, all those sourcing those ingredients, it was absolutely worth it. This is one of the most unique, yet also familiar zombies that I've ever had. All the flavors that you're kind of used to in a zombie are kind of there, but they're kind of slightly tweaked and kind of in a different dimension. The absinthe is there, but it's amplified by the addition of some maraschino liqueur. The grapefruit's there, but now it's enhanced by being a grapefruit punch syrup, which involved some grapefruit oleosaccharum, some citric acid, and a bunch of other things. And that pineapple juice is really amazing because it's acid adjusted, meaning I added some citric and malic acid to it to kind of maybe mimic a lemon in terms of its tartness. It just kind of changes the whole experience of the pineapple. But the through line is this absinthe, maraschino, and like salted caramel note that kind of runs through the entire experience on your palate. And like halfway through, after all that fruity juiciness, is when this deep, like low bass note of rum kind of comes in and kind of takes you all the way to the finish. It's a really interesting blend of rums that really kind of come together really nicely and kind of lock in together as like a puzzle. They fit each other. The heat and the warmth of the alcohol is all there for sure, but it's allowing all the other flavors to kind of have a spotlight too. I kind of want to give this a 10 out of 10, but I think the thing to probably do with something like this is to kind of leave the 10 slot kind of open. I think there's the perfect zombie, the 10 out of 10 zombie should always be elusive. It should be something you always strive for, right? And that's obviously something you can apply to anything, right? The perfect rum or the perfect Mai Tai, right? There always should be something that motivates you to constantly look for more and try for more. Because once you find it, the 10 out of 10 perfect, well, then what, right? Then you found it. Okay, so now there's no more point in drinking any other zombie, right? So I think to really intellectualize this thing, no zombie should be a 10 out of 10, right? I think we should always leave that slot open to keep us looking, or keep me at least, looking for more zombies to chase after and drink and appreciate and geek out on. So given that, I am going to score this a 9 out of 10. Let's call it a 9.99 out of 10. I just think this is fantastic. It's a lot of work to put this drink together. If you have the time, energy, and resources to get these rums and make all those ingredients, I think you're in for an absolute treat. Here's the final rankings of all 20 of the zombies, with Donn's Demon, Inferno Room Zombie, Italian Zombie, and the Oaxacan Daed all at the top of the rankings with a score of 9. So that's the video, and yeah, maybe I didn't have 1,000 zombies, but honestly, I sure as hell felt like I did. Now, in terms of my favorites, well, obviously the Donn's Demon here is one of my favorites, as is the Inferno Room zombie, as is Marie King's Italian zombie. That Oaxacan Daed from Leandro on the Educated Barfly channel is amazing. I love that. That's one I'm gonna make all the time. I would make this all the time if it wasn't so involved. And the other thing I've really learned is that the definition of a zombie doesn't have to be so kind of cut and dry, right? It can be many different things depending on who's making it, right? And what kind of rums they're using, what kind of ingredients that they're using. And that's the kind of brilliance of it all, you know? And yeah, there are certain hallmarks and things that I look for, that the layered flavors, the complexity, the spice, the herbaceousness, the boozy, bold, slightly dangerous element of zombie, I think to me is why I love it so much. And there's so many different ways to interpret that and kind of manifest it. And I think that's really, really cool. Now, for me, was the part about this video that I enjoyed the most. But I'm interested in knowing what are some of your favorite zombies. Let me know by leaving a comment down below. I specifically want to know what are the rums that you love to use in your zombies. Now, if you're interested in some exclusive behind the scenes content where I try rums for the first or second time and give you my gut reactions to them, then consider checking out my Patreon page there. I have tons of content there that I think you'll really like. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you all next time. Cheers.